Imagine a young soldier, barely 20 years old, his uniform neatly pressed, his boots shining, his heart full of hope. He stands beneath the American flag, ready to fight for freedom, a freedom that, ironically, his own country has denied him. He's not just fighting Hitler's army overseas, he's also fighting racism, injustice, and the crushing silence at home. These were the forgotten heroes, the black soldiers of WWII. When the Second World War broke out, more than 1 million African Americans answered the call to serve. They trained, they fought, and many died on battlefields thousands of miles away, from North Africa to Italy, from France to the Pacific. Yet, back home, their names were erased, their stories ignored, and their sacrifices buried beneath the weight of discrimination. In the official photographs and documentaries of the war, they were almost invisible, but behind those missing images were men who carried courage beyond imagination. They loaded ammunition under enemy fire. They repaired tanks in the middle of chaos. They drove supply trucks through bombed-out towns. And yet, when they returned home, they were forced to sit in the back of the bus, denied the very freedom they had risked everything to protect. It's a painful irony that these men wore the same uniform, saluted the same flag, and bled the same red blood, yet were told they weren't equal. While white soldiers were celebrated as heroes, black veterans were often beaten, humiliated, or denied the benefits of the GI Bill that built the American middle class. Still, they never stopped believing, because deep inside, they knew true courage isn't about medals. It's about dignity. Their story isn't just about war. It's about a fight for identity, for justice, and for a place in history. And as we move forward, we'll uncover how these men fought not one, but two wars, one on the battlefield, and one within their own homeland. When those black soldiers boarded ships to Europe, they believed they were leaving behind the world of segregation, stepping into a fight for liberty, for democracy, for everything America claimed to stand for. But soon they discovered, the enemy wasn't only across the ocean. In the training camps of Alabama, Georgia, and Mississippi, racism was alive and brutal. White officers barked orders, calling them slurs instead of names. In some bases, German prisoners of war were treated better than black American soldiers. Imagine that the very enemy America was fighting was allowed to sit in restaurants that black soldiers couldn't enter. Yet, these men endured because they believed that by proving their loyalty and courage on foreign soil, they could earn respect back home. They fought under burning skies in Italy, marched through mud in France, and risked their lives in every possible way, just for America's freedom, but for their own humanity. One of the most famous units was the Tuskegee Airmen, the first African-American military aviators. They flew fighter planes in missions that demanded perfection, and they delivered it. While others doubted them, they guarded bombers so skillfully that they became legends in the air. But when they returned home, no parades, no glory, just the same segregation signs and locked doors. In the Pacific, black soldiers handled the most dangerous jobs, building airstrips, unloading ammunition, carrying supplies under constant fire. Many died without medals, without headlines, without even their families knowing the full story of their sacrifice. This was their double war, fighting tyranny abroad and racism at home. And even after victory was declared in 1945, for them, the battle was far from over, because when they returned to the land of the free, they realized something heartbreaking. Freedom had conditions, and equality had a price. But out of this pain rose determination, men who refused to be silenced any longer, and their courage would soon ignite a revolution that changed America forever. When the war finally ended, millions of soldiers came home to celebration, flags waving, parades echoing through American streets, cheers for our heroes. But for thousands of black veterans, there were no parades, only silence. They came home wearing the same uniform, but the world saw only the color of their skin. These men had fought against Hitler's fascism. They had seen death, destruction, and the price of freedom. They had believed that when they returned, things would finally be different. But as they stepped off trains, they were met with whites-only signs, denied service in restaurants, and even attacked for daring to wear their uniform proudly. It was a cruel reminder. America had changed everywhere, except home. Yet this time, something was different. They had seen Europe countries where they were treated like equals. They had seen what freedom really looked like, and they were no longer willing to accept less. Many veterans started to speak up. They joined early civil rights groups like the NOC, pushing for justice in the courts and in the streets. Men like Medgar Evers, who had served in World War II, came back with a fire inside him, a belief that if he could face enemy bullets, he could face racist laws too. Their courage inspired others. From the dusty roads of Mississippi to the crowded buses of Montgomery, a movement was rising built on the strength, sacrifice, and silent rage of black soldiers who had once fought for America's freedom overseas. They realized something powerful. They didn't just defend democracy, they defined it. And now, they were ready to claim their place in it. Their stories, once buried in shadows, became the backbone of the civil rights movement, a reminder that the fight for equality wasn't born in protests alone. It was born on the battlefields of WWII. And as their voices grew louder, America could no longer pretend not to hear. The seeds of revolution had been planted, and history was about to change forever. Out of the chaos of war and the silence of injustice rose men who refused to be forgotten. They weren't just soldiers, they were pioneers, fighting not only for victory, but for visibility. Take Dorie Miller, a name carved into history. He was a mess attendant on the USS West Virginia when Japan attacked Pearl Harbor. He wasn't trained to fight just to serve food. But when bombs fell and chaos erupted, Dorie jumped behind an anti-aircraft gun and fired back at enemy planes, saving countless lives. For that act of unmatched courage, he became the first Black American to earn the Navy Cross, a moment that shook the walls of segregation inside the military itself. Then came the Tuskegee Airmen, those brave black pilots who defied every stereotype. While others doubted them, they took to the skies with unmatched skill and discipline. Their bomber escort missions were so flawless that even white commanders had to admit, these men weren't just good, they were elite. Every flight they made tore down another wall of prejudice. And it didn't stop there. The 761st Tank Battalion, known as the Black Panthers, charged through Nazi defenses in Europe with iron determination. Their motto said it all: come out fighting. They fought not for medals, but for respect, proving that bravery had no color. These heroes didn't just fight enemies overseas. They challenged the racism built into their own nation's DNA. Every bullet they fired, every mission they survived, was a message. We are America too. Their victories became symbols. Their names became legends. And their stories, once hidden, began to light the path toward a new America, one that could no longer deny their place in history. But legends alone weren't enough. Real change required confrontation, not on foreign soil this time, but in the streets, schools, and hearts of America itself. And that battle was just beginning when the guns of World War II finally went silent. The battle for freedom didn't end, it simply changed battlegrounds. And though the world celebrated victory for the black soldiers who had fought and bled for that victory, the real war was only beginning. They came home to a nation still divided by color lines, but this time, they refused to step back into silence. They had seen what courage could do on the front lines, and now they were ready to use that same courage to change their own country. Their stories became the spark behind the civil rights movement. Those who once faced Nazi fire now faced police dogs, water hoses, and mobs, yet they didn't flinch. They marched, they spoke, they stood tall. Their service had taught them that freedom isn't given, it's earned. The bravery of men like Medgar Evers, a veteran who became one of the first field secretaries for the NOC, inspired thousands to rise up. His words echoed a soldier's oath: if I die, it'll be for something that will outlast me. And it did. Because of their strength, President Harry Truman signed Executive Order 9981, desegregating the U.S. Armed Forces, a decision that changed the course of American history. It wasn't just policy, it was a promise that the sacrifices of black soldiers would no longer be ignored. Decades later, their legacy still lives on in every uniform worn by men and women of every color. Standing side by side under one flag, they proved that patriotism isn't about skin. It's about soul. When we speak of freedom, quality, and America's greatness, we must remember the truth. It was their struggle that made those words real. The untold story of black soldiers and World War II isn't just history, it's a mirror, showing us who we were, and who we can still become.